So, what does it mean to be American? This is an age-old question that's been asked since before the country's founding. But how do we even begin to answer it? Does it mean believing in things like the Constitution and freedom of speech, showing your patriotism, or just being a citizen? I think in order to even begin thinking about these questions, we need to keep into account the recent resurgence of white nationalism and xenophobia that we've seen in the past few years, especially since the election of Donald Trump. However, let's go back even further to when the melting pot theory was coined, a metaphor for American society and culture that has been around since the 1780s. The term was popularized in 1908 during a wave of mass European immigration, when Israel Zangwill's beloved play of the same name hit Broadway theaters. But even in the early 2000s, it was common to refer to the United States as a melting pot of cultures, and it seemed like a positive thing. Just watch this clip from Schoolhouse Rock.
The great American melting pot, the great American melting pot. What good ingredients, liberty and immigrants. They brought the country's customs, their language and their ways.
However, it's really a disguised model of forced assimilation and erasure of diverse cultural identities. In his 2004 book, Who Are We?, Samuel Huntington, who was a tenured professor at Harvard and one of the most prominent scholars of political science in the country, refers to the melting pot in a culinary metaphor as an Anglo-Protestant soup, to which immigration adds celery, croutons, spices, parsley, and other ingredients that enrich and diversify the taste, but which are absorbed into what remains fundamentally tomato soup. Huntington's metaphor hits the mark on what's problematic with the melting pot theory. It places whiteness at the center of American identity and culture, and refers to America as a white America. And it's concepts like this that tell us what it means to be American is to be white. Now, let's go back to this word, American. Just like how the term ethnic food just refers to all non-Western European food, and just like how the melting pot is really just referring to a white America, Americanness has increasingly become a proxy term for whiteness. And that's in large part due to the nationalist and white nationalist rhetoric of Donald Trump. See, under the Trump administration, the terms patriotism, nationalism, and white nationalism are as closely linked as ever. Trump has normalized patriotism and nationalism so much that the line between the two is blurred, and because he equates Americanness with whiteness, white nationalists are emboldened to pass their racism, xenophobia, and white supremacy off as plain old patriotism or nationalism. And he really does equate Americanness with whiteness all the time. Like when he told 4 American congresswomen of color to go back to their broken and crime-infested countries, rejecting their Americanness solely because of the color of their skin. And when you so narrowly define what it means to be American while also normalizing nationalism and placing such a high importance on people's Americanness, violence and hate occurs. I'll give you an example. This is Thomas Rousseau. Rousseau, founder of Patriot Front, one of the most active neo-Nazi and white nationalist groups in the United States, told a Maryland-based newspaper this March, and he believes Trump is a white supremacist who uses the same rhetoric as his group. While Trump won't admit his own promotion of white nationalism, he's a vocal promoter of ethnoculturalism and nationalism, which is incredibly dangerous when they're so closely linked to white nationalism. So, what does it mean to be American? I don't have a definitive answer, and I don't know if that matters. I think recent events have reminded us that if you aren't white, your belonging in this country is ultimately conditional. So it's time for us to take a step back and reevaluate what it means to be American, even if we never reach a final answer.